welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I am an Untitled Anarchist Seagull. And since it's St. Patrick's Day, I've got some different music for today. As we start out with a little bit of Inkulinati.
Fuck me, Niakamina bastardy. Cardu and a walla got a mullock as a TVST. Chance of B, go away, he should mawalla MD. Murder culture and knock the snail foster riven RUC. It's gone down to Misha or beach, like all she so the sneeze. A rich so rich, just sneeze. Stop me mega mudgy, murder supreme she says for my mala more cat. And none of the keys.
Two fucking Essak on the show, a fucking joke. Tell me a geary of egg and kosher laddie, give here a couple of yolks. Down a couple of Lena, wine and food or mean coke. Is Chucky Jerry, he has been with your fatty golden smoke.
And here we go. This is a Belfast-based Irish language rap group called Kneecap, who have the distinction of having been banned by the Free State television station RTE. Because among other things, they sing about how the police can fuck off. Ah shit, I'm starting with the apocalyptic fire. Ik chat de stakje kun fried slet je kan amara. Ik kosher up la tinky winky og shimas bara. Ik stop a moon gevru fried ge en yarak gilem sneeze le the wamu. The walk is the khara. And you can ask me lay in the sira or about cara.
Neil Ian, har knock on with John Freela her. There a cocky August few wine the car. Expressing a hatch or what hell of a severance in a Johnny Sneeze wine the real DTG car. So gotcha. And this August Johnny must Jasper Merton Misha roast them and this is Shaw Freela. It's been okay. Only one that has any range. Ich komme links fuck Philly in Garda. Okay, there we go.
Young man, we caught you damaging public property. We're coming to the station so we can talk properly.
De tu ik lord le kneecap was kommer lens a chuck. Beer me friend the wash her ik wanka like fuck. Ik straat als de man om to the euro for flock. Ik torch grady de da her agus mail on knock. Marla thermal and it's to me as my viewer. Johnny Misha a vog that chuggers to us core could be. Then a V Marcus did the hill. Brush him ahan real shock as fucking kill the kill. C-E-A-R-T-I is kommer lumps of fuck free in garda. Du gene lasted to Misha rocast and the yaki to Misha in my hasu ro ada. C-E-A-R-T-I is kommer lumps of fuck free in garda. Du gene lasted to Misha rocast and the yaki to
and there we go.
C-E-A-R-T-I is kommer lumps of fuck free in garda. Du gene lasted to Misha rocast and the yaki to Misha in my hasu ro ada. C-E-A-R-T-I is kommer lumps of fuck free in garda. Du gene lasted to Misha rocast and the yaki to Misha in my hasu ro ada. C-E-A-R-T-I is kommer lumps of fuck free in garda. Du gene lasted to Misha rocast and the yaki to Misha in my hasu ro ada.
Oh hey, Black Anarchic Reacts! I was going to be giving you a shout out tonight anyway. Nice to see you. Oh, just getting started. We always start out with the game, and lately it's been Inkulinati because it's just delightfully weird. And then there will be some roasting of chuds a little bit later on. Ah, tabarnak. Yeah, get rid of him. I love that stream you did on Caleb Maupin. That was really good. Been sort of watching it
bit by bit, since it's a bit long, just every time I get a chance, a couple of like a half hour or two. But he did not mention martyr bombs or bloody claymore mines. These were sent to cross Mudley to carry more of Ireland home. Be back for more. And there we go. Won that one. It's from an Armagh line. There's aimed across Medley to Yarrowbourne. Okay, what can I buy here? Ah, he's a good one to have. Add armor. I didn't know that this was available. Yeah, let's do it. Side ideas. In the barracks in round our ears. Oh, well. Can't really change the army because I've only got 5 anyway, so it's gonna be the same anyway. So how you doing today? Thanks for joining us. Always glad to see new people around. Oh yeah. That was... I still think the, just 3 words to cover has was quite good as well. I have an appreciation for the idea of dignifying somebody with no more words than they're worthy, and actually I think we might be looking at House today. I've got a collection of assholery to look at in about 20 odd minutes, and there will be some interesting options. What can I do here? Not a whole lot. Alright. Usually takes a little bit of time for people to start showing up.
Underground, overground, swim in the sea.
I'm mocking knock Disney, Higglin fucking Fanax, Mickey Daniel, egg chapter of Alak, Via Car, Carsburg, August Gin and Tonic, Mershon and Duggar Moy, Lumps and Mocked, Malamore, Ranye,
Oh shit, this was not the best place to be putting him. Well, I guess stick him there. Oh, I see some more people have joined. How are you doing? Oh, I bet. I mean, the one thing that really gets me about Haz is 99% of what he says on pretty much any topic is an absolute hot mess. But then, I've heard him talk about international law, and he actually has, like, a tolerable grasp of that, apart from the quaint idea that it's actually a thing that does anything in the world. Like, that's, you know, the notion that there's some kind of rule-based international order other than whoever has the biggest bombs rules. But then any other thing, it's just, like, just the most random shit. And there we go. I have largely dodged Hegel. Marx I've read a fair bit of. Lenin the odd bit, you know, Luxembourg, Kropotkin. Never really did much with Hegel. I guess out of these we'll have a bit of the ink well. You see, in this game, I don't know if you played it before, it's pretty new, but you have living ink, and that's what you draw your little beasties with, that you then use to fight. So you always want to maximize the amount of that you have. Okay, we got medieval Yoda here. Oh god, I just had this same fucking bullshit. Yeah, on my other stream. I have a stream that I do during the days on Fridays and Saturdays. It's about languages and language learning and shit. There we go, there's Twitch. We can get rid of this guy. And I had this exact same copy pasta from spam bot. Can we just delete that crap? Yeah, get rid of him. The exact same shit. Let's see. What are we doing? Okay, first we gotta get her off the edge. And get an archer in there. Always good to have somebody who has some range. See, you stand on these ink blots in order to get more living ink, so that you can draw more wee beasties. They just call them beasts. I like to call them wee beasties. Okay, what do we got left to do? I'll add armor to him. That's a new one on me. I played this a lot. Okay. This is one from one of my favorite Irish rebel bands, the Men of No Property. A couple of Como Republicans from the 70s. Get away the boys, that famous helicopter the boys had organized to rescue Seamus to me when the British feared. That's like the best fucking prisoner escape ever. They actually hired a helicopter and flew it into Mountjoy Prison in Dublin. I mean, that is class. No, the governor he did stare, and as he broke down crying, I said, "Hey, it isn't fair. Put barbed wire along the walls, and every door is barred. But the IRA flew in one day, and they landed in the yard." And then the best part is they did a repeat performance of that in Chile a few years later, to get out a guy by the name of, various members of the Frente Patriótico Manuel Rodriguez, who were in, including the guy who assassinated fascist ghoul Guzman, the guy who wrote the horrible constitution that they've still got there. Hey, Phoenix, how you doing? Welcome. Phoenix is a regular here. Black Anarchic reacts. I shouted him out over in the Discord. Surprise. his addition to chat, and very happy to see. He has a great stream. Check him out sometime if you haven't already. What was I? Ah, there we go. Hang on, this isn't a great recording.
There's a wee song.
This is a song that came to mind a lot when I was staying at Echo Park in LA a couple of years ago. Because the LAPD would fly their fucking helicopters way low down. You'd have like pictures shaking on walls and shit. And after like a week of that every fucking night, I just couldn't help thinking about this song.
With Armalites and mortar balls, thought I knew the score. Oh, but now
It's Samsung by the Irish Brigade.
the Brits are looking worried,
Worried.
and the choppers are flying lower. Shucky Arla, sing up the rap, up the rap.
Missiles in the sky.
I started out with petrol bombs and throwing bricks and stones. There are 100 more lads like me. I never was alone. But soon I learned that bricks and stones wouldn't drive the Brits away.
It wasn't very long before joined the IRA. Chucky Arla, sing up the road. Missiles in the sky.
Is it a bird? No. Is it a plane? No. It's Super Sam. Let's hear ya. Chucky Arla, sing it yourself. Up the rocks, missiles in the sky.
How you doing, Phoenix?
Well, then there came internment in the year of 71. The Brits thought we were beaten, that we were on the run.
Has everybody been following this Jamie Reed bullshit? I'm working on a video essay on it. On Jamie Reed and Jesse Single's latest fucking jump over the hurdles of journalistic ethics and fucking just general decency. And it occurred to me, there's only one thing you really need to know about that fake-ass whistleblower. And that's who she gave the information about these kids to. That's all you need to know. Because she could have, you know, she was working in that field for a while. She could have given, she would have known the names of organizations and people who actually give a shit about trans people's quality of healthcare and shit. And she didn't. She gave it to Barry Weiss, the white supremacist troll, fucking Jesse Single, the grifter who just never met a transphobic hoax he didn't like, and a fucking attorney general in Missouri who doesn't think trans people should be allowed to exist. That's all anyone needs to know about fucking Jamie Reed. Oh shit. Hey, I'm glad you found it. I've had that happen too. I got really lucky one time. I was on the bus, like half asleep on the way from work years ago. And I didn't notice that I had lost my fucking wallet. Oh, it could be an issue on Restream's end. So I get home. The next day, I discover I have no wallet on me. And then I go to work and try to just, you know, live as normal while I try to figure out what the hell to do. And while I'm waiting to see if maybe it turns up before I go canceling all my cards and shit. Not that there was anything on them. I mean, anyone who nicked my cards, I would have felt sorry for. Maybe they would have improved my credit rating. And then I get this call from the Cincinnati Bell unlisted number service that a woman called the phone company to find out my number since it was unlisted, and she'd found my wallet. And it was intact. I mean, there was like 20 bucks in it that was gone, but that was it. And I was able to pick it up the next day, and everything was cool.
Graham Faulkner said one day that internment's here to stay. The stroke of his orange pen to the Maidstone sent our men. And did you ever see? Did you ever see? Did you ever see such a funny thing before? Brian F. he did not know, our boys didn't want to go, and one upon a whim says, I think we'll take a swim. And did you ever see? Did you ever see? Did you ever see such a funny thing before? In the side there cut a hole, and went sliding down a pole. Said, boys, there's 7 of us, so I think we'll take the bus. And did you ever see? Did you ever see? Did you ever see such a funny thing before? To the markets they did drive, and were helped when they arrived by our gallant Irish folk, who all laughed at this big joke. And did you ever see? Did you ever see? Did you ever see such a funny thing before?
So here's up your arsenal and a Georgie best to you. There's not a team in the whole wide world like the crumbling kangaroos. In the Crumbin Road jail now, all the prisoners one day, they took out a football and started for to play. And as the wardens watched there, the passing of the ball, one of the bloody football teams
gone.
up and over the wall. So it here's up your arsenal and a George best to you.
Yeah, these chain reactions are handy.
The whole wide world like the crumbling kangaroos. The wardens they looked on now in the greatest of surprise. This sight they saw before them.
Fortunately, I got a spare.
Their eyes. For one of the teams had disappeared. For Ireland they'd been called. They'd been given a free transfer to a team just over the wall. So it here's up your arsenal and a George best to you. There's not a team in the whole wide world like the crumbling kangaroo. The governor, he came down now, his face all in a twist. He said, line up these men now, till I get out of the list.
I stream, at least for the moment, both on Twitch and YouTube, so I use the restream chat, and that sometimes lags something awful.
And a George best to you. There's not a team in the whole wide world like the crumbling kangaroos.
Healing explosions is a handy one to have.
The 25th of September in the year 83, from the cages of Longcase, 38 men ran free. That show, said the governor, you all must agree. If they had been English, they'd have stayed for their tea. Did they ever return? No, they never returned. And one thing you can be sure. Well, this time 38 went right on out of the gate. But the next time there'll be more. The governor was angry and he made it quite clear who gave them permission to
Das
drive
war
out
noch
of
nie
here.
da.
They'll get into trouble if they're stopped, can't they see?
A friend of mine, when she was a junior doctor in Belfast, actually worked in the same hospital as the lead singer of this group, which is the Irish Brigade. He was a cleaner there.
You can be sure. Well, this time 38 went right on out of the gate, but the next time,
By all accounts, a
there'll
gas
be
man.
more. Well, poor Mr. Pryor could not show his face, for Margaret Thatcher
Thatcher
says
says
it's a disgrace. It's bad enough Provo's all over the place, but 38 dinners have all gone to waste. Did they ever return? No, they never returned. And one thing you can be sure. Well, now this time 38 went right on out of the gate, but the next time there'll be more. Now the governor and warders didn't know what to do. It was clear that security would need a review. They doubled the guards and they cleared up the mess. But then Liam Avro waltzed out in a dress. Did they ever return? No, they never returned. And one thing you can be sure. Well, now this time 38 went right on out of the gate. But the next time there'll be more. Did they ever return? No, they never returned. And one thing you can be.
Okay, that was not what I was going for. Okay, return. Okay, get rid of him. So you're in Michigan? Okay. And there we go. And with that, it's time to move over to the roasting portion of the evening. Yeah, well, first I take all of my beasts and other shit. Oh, they got the new mobs in there! Bow-wielding pigeon. Very cool. I've never had that. They had announced a couple of days ago that they were going to start putting some new beasts in. And I hadn't actually played it since they did that. Okay. Feuerbild einschalten. Okay. So we, as I said, got some options here. We've got Vush reacting to Has debating against somebody I've never heard of. We've got Vush arguing about whether you're a bad ally if you buy Hogwarts Legacy, and I have to say, in his case, you couldn't actually be a worse ally than he already is, because he's not a fucking ally. We've got Lori Lightfoot is a horrible loss for the left, which, I mean, pretty much every comrade in Chicago that I know would laugh their ass off at that premise. Then Oh yeah, we saw the one where he manages to go through an entire stream. This was last week, 24 minute stream on what's going on in Israel. Didn't say a damn thing about the Palestinians. That was impressive. Yeah. So, well, we got lots of dipshits reacting to dipshits here. Anyone capture your fancy here? I mean, I'm kind of curious about this rematch after the. I mean, on this stream, we watched the time that Has paid like $200 to Vush to go on his stream, and it was just constant mutually assured destruction. Like, oh, wait a second, I gotta get that back up to normal levels. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he's an adversary. I mean, he's not an accomplice, not an ally. Adversary. I mean, especially the way that somehow every time he decides to intervene in some sort of discussion with transphobes on Twitter, his thing is to say the most misogynistic shit that comes to his mind. And then get offended when people are like, hey, that's actually fucked up. Then his little mini-me Xander hole comes out to his defense. I'm kind of curious. This is going to be long. They're not going to do the whole thing, obviously. May not do the whole thing, like, ever. But we're going to do some of it. We're going to have a look. Oh, wait a second. That's a bit loud. I didn't know if it was loud on your end, but it was pretty loud on mine. Oh, get that volume mixer. Za utvori mikser jačine zvuka. And also, my project with the oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks, Phoenix.
Starting with the one, the only,
Adam!
Has, close quotes, red.
Oh, shit, I forgot to start recording. There's gonna be some content coming up. I'm pretty sure of it. Hey, Adam. Let me just introduce you. I mentioned the stream. I mentioned Black Anarchic Reacts in the Discord, but that is a stream to check out. The Maupin archive, these people who are just dedicated to, like, saving all the receipts on Caleb Maupin, shared one of their recent streams on the subject of the Muppet, and it was really good. So definitely one to check out. We're looking at Vush debating... Yeah, Vush watching fucking Has... versus President something or other. I can't see it because my camera's in the way. I know the feeling. President Sunday. I'd never heard of him. I wouldn't mind even a cat to share my life with. I miss cats. Where I'm living, I can't have them because my stepfather is deathly allergic to them, so... That can't happen. They're these lovely cats next door who are always running around, and I can't even touch them because even the slightest amount of, like, cat dander will set him off. Yeah, definitely worth checking them out.
10
Here we go.
minutes to talk about his political theory, followed, of course, by President Sunday. Then we will do our back and forths, give everyone a fair chance to talk, and the timer starts now.
You can tell Has totally isn't at all insecure because he manages to have a fucking scimitar in frame.
Modern politics is beset by the same fundamental contradiction, the same asymmetry defining modernity as a whole. Thinkers like Bruno Latour once framed this paradoxical contradiction as between a process of purification.
Oh, he's got a script this time. He's decided not to go off the cuff. Let's see.
Establishing some ontological zone, such as man, reason, cogito, civilized people, etc., and opposing it to its other, such as nature, the animal kingdom, outsiders, etc., as well as the process of translation, where the actual effect of applying this...
Hey, yeah, Vosh is glazing over. Because, I mean, as much as fucking Haz doesn't actually know any of this shit, and is making this up, and just is throwing in buzzwords for an audience of people who don't know this shit either. Vosh really also doesn't know any of this shit. I mean, he's the most intellectually lazy motherfucker since Tim Pool.
To actual reality leads to hybrids between the two, proving modernity's inability to fully conquer its own premises. Political modernity understood in this same vein of purification, establishing the universal rights of man, privileging the abstract and generalized concept of man as the supreme political subject, without any essential regard for the particular details of personality, background, estate, religion, or even race, gender, and wealth. Likewise, political modernity has given rise to various hybrids of its own, strange combinations of this universal subject with its opposed particularity, in the form of different classes, separatist ethnic and religious identities, interest groups, racial animosities, and the form of identity politics.
Racial animosities.
I merely propose, drawing from the ideas of Slavoj Žižek's ontology.
Oh god, okay. Yeah, I knew there was going to be a Zizek in here. Because anytime, he's like the guy you go to if you don't want to touch Dugan and you want to, like, cosplay a leftist while actually having all the reactionary shit that you could actually easily get from just, like, fucking Jordan Peterson.
An even more fundamental political contradiction pre-exists that between universality and particularity, state and civil society, human and nature, etc., etc., which is internal to the abstract form of political modernity itself. Both the political left and right take what Latour calls the rupture in time of political modernity for granted. The political left is revolutionary.
You gonna define any of these terms?
Representing the abstract form of change. The right is its conservative wing, attempting to derive a definite political logic out of this modern process of purification, situating people in their rightful place with respect to objects in the case of private property, and with respect to other persons in the case of various hierarchies. So modernity implies a paradox, or
yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for him to go extemporaneous. Because this is not his usual form. This is not the power level we're used to. The power level we're used to is where he suddenly finds out stuff about women's bodies and, like, fucking freaks out. It's piss?
Contradiction that pre-exists and arguably engenders the division into left and right. On the one hand, it implies a revolutionary change. On the other, it also implies a new order and form of preserving itself. In the aftermath of the revolution...
I don't know who the hell President Sunday is, but he's, like, glazing over too. Okay. Is anyone going to object if I skip over to, like, wait till he starts ad-libbing?
Western leftism is the vanguard of the current ancien regime's hegemony, which has become outmoded by history itself. It's for that reason that it is also a vanity. It will be condemned to the dustbin of history as a multipolar order rises from the ashes of the globalist empire.
Ooh, multipolarity, pog.
Anybody else smelling burnt toast?
Okay, I don't know who this guy is, but that was good.
I can see why 10 minutes was necessary. All right. Burn toast aside. President, it's your call.
Thank you.
I guess we're gonna find out who this guy is now.
Thank you, Vosh, for moderating.
Oh, fucking hell, Vosh is moderating this thing. That'll be interesting. See, the last time we saw this, Vosh basically spent, like, the first half an hour just totally dunking on Has, which is not hard. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world, especially when he's ad-libbing. And then, just as you were getting used to, the wonderful plot twist of Has bringing out the fact that, Vosh is a fucking nonce. Or at the very least, a nonce apologist. And that's why he doesn't get allowed on the stream anymore. This is like an exception he's making.
So we are apparently debating my opponent Hawes' groundbreaking theory of the political spectrum. That's how I understood it from our messages prior. I'm not entirely certain now. The principal source for this being an essay on the infrared Substack entitled "The Rise of Mega-Communism," the purpose of which, given in the...
Oh god, okay, so this is about MAGA fake-ass communism. Where you just sort of go up to chuds at fash rallies, say fash shit and say, guess what? I bet you can't believe, I can't believe it's not communism. And anyone who knows anything about communism has absolutely no fucking trouble believing it's not communism. Fash margarine.
How can MAGA and communism be united? For one is clearly far right and the other far left, unquote. Putting it lightly, this essay is bizarre. At over 13,400 words, it is meandering and overlong, filled with esoteric terminology which, while I'm a rigorous...
Okay, I like this guy. I don't know anything else about him. But, yeah, he's not wrong. I haven't read the essay, but I know enough about Has to know esoteric terminology making no fucking sense. That's Has. That's his thing.
Sufficiently explained so as to mean something specific is here ultimately included only to be put to the service of motivating statements like, quote, leftism is a type of mental retardation according to which the latest quote-unquote open agenda...
What the fuck is that?
...historical change, unquote. The essence of my opponent's thesis can actually be given rather quickly.
Oh, and somebody is keeping it classy in Bush's chat. Managed to make a homophobic slur related to MAGA communism. It's like, you didn't have to do that. You really didn't have to do that.
In a move of breathtaking erudition to which one can only react with awe, Hawes proposes the revolutionary thesis that the left, the right, liberal elites, and quote-unquote globalists are in fact all the same people, and that these refer to the political opponents of globalization, trans rights, BLM, free immigration, other left-wing causes, and so forth as well.
So basically, another example of somebody talking about going beyond the left-right paradigm, and I'm sure everybody in chat is well aware. You start hearing that shit, you know you're gonna hear some far-right shit pretty soon. That train is just never late.
Quote-unquote Nazis to obscure the fact that they themselves have in fact inherited Nazism. Thus, it was in fact the right, who are actually the left, who beat the Nazis in World War II in order to establish a global leftist hegemony that is in fact a rightist hegemony to disguise the fact that they actually were the right all along. And in a stroke of diabolical genius through, quote, agents of deception like Ron DeSantis, unquote, they simultaneously persecute and pretend to be the genuine right, which they are, except they aren't because they are the left, with the result that, quote, a complete takeover of the Hitlerite kind is all but now inevitable, which will attempt to satisfy the patriotic aspirations of the MAGA movement into consensus for war, a war which will seek to preserve the power of the bankers and globalists, unquote.
What the fuck? Okay. Yeah, okay, I mean, sounds about Has. The bankers and global... Why do you need two different fucking anti-Semitic dog whistles? Everybody knows when people like this start talking about the bankers and the globalists, they're talking about the same people. There's never any moment where you see the bankers and the globalists in one room together at the same time. It doesn't happen. He's just fucking filling up a word count with that.
In this apocalyptic vision, my opponent sees the left being both the right and the left all at once, which is why when he writes that, quote, so-called rightist, quote-unquote, ideologists are thus today split between Azovites and the accidentally based, unquote. Rightist is put in quotes because it actually refers to the left, and the accidentally based refers to cranks like Jordan Peterson, whose rhetoric just incidentally happens to run contrary to whatever species of establishment paranoia Hawes wants to capitalize on in the moment.
Accidentally based. That's a great... I have not... Well, okay. The time he shut the fuck up and put himself into an artificial coma for a few months so we didn't have to hear from him, that was accidentally based. I'll give him that. That was pog as hell. He needs to do more of that.
Goals get in the way of my opponent going all in on an argument for aligning communism with the MAGA movement. How MAGA escapes being right-wing for my opponent is by being partisan. What does this mean? This introduces this term partisan.
Don't even try to find out.
Theory of the partisan. The partisan for Schmitt is a combatant fulfilling 4 essential conditions.
Wait, Schmitt, are we talking Carl Schmitt?
What does this mean? Haas introduces this term partisan by way of Carl Schmitt's essay.
Fucking hell, okay, so, like, the official lawyer of Nazism. The guy, the legal theorist of Nazism. That's who he's quoting here. Just for anyone keeping score.
It's a theory of the partisan. The partisan for Schmitt is a combatant fulfilling 4 essential conditions. The partisan is irregular, has increased mobility, has a heightened intensity of political commitment, and is thoroughly Tellurian, which is to say land-based. This is what distinguishes partisans from pirates and corsairs for Schmitt. And
okay, what the hell does... Okay, he's talking... When he talks about partisan, he's talking about guerrilla warfare. This has nothing to do with anything that... with anything to do with fucking MAGA. This is his rewrite of the Geneva and Hague Conventions, because the Nazis decided even the fairly loose definitions of the concept of civilian and combatant in the Hague Convention and the early Geneva Conventions, the first ones, were too tight for what the Nazis wanted to do, but they had these lawyers who, on the one hand, were pushing this idea that actually anything that comes out of Hitler's mouth is the law, but at the same time, they wanted to put everything on some kind of a statutory footing that they themselves, in their so-called legal theory, said was actually unnecessary and, in fact, harmful, because having an actual statutory basis for the exercise of state power was liberal Jewishness, according to these same fucking theorists. So, I mean, it's fundamental contradictions within fascism, the usual. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, between this President Sunday, who I've never heard of, and Has, at least President Sunday is having the decency to make some fucking sense. I mean, he's droning on. I can see why. I mean, it's like he went to the fucking Foch School of Oratory, where it's just, you want to talk like this, and you're gonna use a constant monotone, and you're going to drone on for hours and hours about something you don't know anything about, but it doesn't matter if you know anything about it or not, because you're using an authoritative tone, and a lot of people are going to simply assume that you know you're talking about because you're doing it at high speed in a monotone.
And is, as far as I can tell, the only part of the definition Haas really takes up. Because introducing the partisan through Schmitt, despite this, rather, my opponent simply insists...
I mean, the thing is, it's not even... When Schmitt's using the term, it is not a political designation. It is a legal description of a type of combatant. It has absolutely nothing to do with, like, defining political tendencies, so it is just completely off the hook to be bringing this in here as a way to negate that somebody's right-wing or whatever. I lost track.
Despite taking cues from the likes of Lenin and Mao, and readers of the same, is too limited by his Hobbesian...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the econ major at the student pub voice. It's every fucking student pub in every university town, probably in the world, has at least one or two of them, and they will sit there and say, yeah, I know it sounds all well and good to talk about raising the minimum wage, but actually that's going to increase unemployment. Let me show you all these mathematical models that we've developed based on praxeology, which is a science of not following the scientific method and just rewriting reality to meet our current argumentative needs. And people just sort of glaze over and they think, ah, yeah, sounds legit. I mean, it's the most annoying person in any fucking student pub anywhere.
Formalism, quote-unquote, and argues instead that the partisan is, quote, the political agent at the end of history, for which change is a moment in the development of an order more eternal than can be given form by modern statehood, unquote. And that the leftist is the great enemy of the partisan because, quote,
the term partisan specifically refers to, I mean, the reason the word parta is in there is because it is referring to armed forces belonging to the Communist Party.
Grounds politics not in partisanship, but in some supposedly universal morality, and the fundamental enduring fact of political antagonism vindicates the leftist sense of smug, self-satisfied superiority, unquote. He then claimed...
It's something that Has would never engage in. He's never smug. These three guys, they're just all completely devoid of smug, self-satisfied superiority.
Quote, partisanship can also be defined by a specific Hegelian sublation of established...
Oh, there we go. We got Hegel. You have not been disappointed, Black Anarchic Reacts. We've got positive Hegel side.
Political distinction, representing a type of political subject interpolated by a new form of universal statehood, the Kajevian empire, polarity, or determinate globality, unquote. What this means is anyone's guess, but it doesn't matter, because by the idea of partisanship as something that sounds sort of like it can easily attach to nationalism or a determinate civilizational polarity. He can now describe MAGA as partisan because it is quote-unquote telluric. Thus, he concludes after an almost unbearably long series of paragraphs too convoluted for me to even attempt to read.
Wait a second. Okay, now I'm just going to have to refresh my memory on what the... Okay, we're checking just the definition of telluric. Of the Earth as a planet or of the soil. Okay, I see. That's where we're going. So, like, just basically blood and soil shit there. Yeah, we got some Hegel.
Capitulate here that the anti-communism of the MAGA movement is just an endearing Americanism that MAGA...
Yeah, it's really fucking endearing. I mean, yeah, it's so endearing how they like to joke about dropping communists out of helicopters, like something that some of their colleagues actually fucking did. I mean, that's just so endearing.
Should form its own discrete party, and that, quote, there is no other choice for mega communists, unquote. Oz isn't stupid. The material he is handling in this essay runs very complicated very quickly.
Yeah, except, I mean, that doesn't... Look, anyone can handle complicated material in the way Has does, which is without having to demonstrate any comprehension of what they're talking about. Like bringing Carl Schmitt's concept of partisan in there as if that had anything to do with anything when he was describing he was distinguishing it, I mean, as he specifically said, from pirates and corsairs. And telluric in this context refers to the fact that partisans, guerrilla warriors, whatever you want to call them, guerrillero, are land-based. There's no fucking Irish Republican Navy. That's all he's fucking saying. But Has is going to seize on that to take it in some completely other wild-ass direction. We're gonna find out.
He could just produce...
Oh, yeah, this guy's boring as hell. He just is sort of, by default, the person that I immediately start feeling like standing because, A, he's coherent, B, he seems to actually know what he's talking about, which is, like... yeah, go foul. Yeah. Which is a rarity on any Vush stream. And on the other hand, he also he's unimpressed by Has, and anyone who, that is like a sort of default criterion for me for taking somebody seriously, is that they look at fucking Has's intellectual word salad and are unimpressed. But yeah, this guy's boring as hell. I want to, when, this has got to spin out of control at some point. This is Has we're talking about. At some point, he's gonna lose his shit and start just saying the most random things ever. I'm skipping ahead.
Okay.
If anything, there are fewer substances in Hobbes than in other thinkers. This is why when you go later on, he's talking, he recapitulates, or
Okay,
rather, he reinterprets like biblical history in terms,
but that just hinges on a frivolous semantic contention of whether or not you want to call the individual of Hobbes a substance.
The individual of Hobbes isn't a substance, though. It's an individual.
Well, it's a substance with regard to the Commonwealth. It's the substance of the Commonwealth.
Okay, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit more. I think tempers are fraying.
In some way.
Here, I'm just gonna interject right away here. So the problem we're running into is that you're
Vush isn't even paying attention. He's playing whatever the fuck that game is. He has absolutely no. He checked out ages ago. He doesn't understand any of this.
German. They start conceiving of the developments of things like art, music, different political
Okay,
forms,
sure.
movements,
Look.
etc.
Let's just for the sake of time, and for the sake of everyone.
No, but the point I'm getting.
Sake of time. This is minute 133. And 1 hour and 33 minutes 51 seconds into a 4.5 hour video. The sake of time. Yeah, I mean, have you heard the phrase definition mongering? This is the phrase that Has uses anytime somebody tries to get him to nail down on what he means by the things he says.
So the point I'm getting at, though,
so the
is
point
that there
is
a
modernity,
chronological development in these things.
In modernity, people start
that
talking
belies the staticness that you're attaching
to. A lot of things are elevated into the status of general treatment with the rise of modernity. So we treat civilization, the idea of civilization emerges, civilization in general. Class in general, as a general thing, emerges for the first time, right? Commodity form, the universal commodity form.
I mean, like the Marxist understanding of class. I don't think class categorically does. No, like
the Marx is that it's built on collective distrust toward the institutions of our society.
But practically every political movement is built off of distrust of institutions of modern society.
Well, not everyone. I mean, there's fucking liberalism. Yeah, I know. I'm just waiting for this thing to get wild. There's like 4 hours of this. There's no way that Haas keeps his cool this whole time. That will be seriously disappointing. If it's like, what did he do diazepam? Yeah, like, okay, you're the Hegelian in the room, Black Anarchic React. Do you have any idea, this thing about being a substance, is that a thing with Hegel? Is being a substance or not being a substance something that is, well, of substance with Hegel? Is that, like, an actual thing? Or is he just pulling that out of his ass, too?
Not institutional. CNN is just a news.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and ignore the comment that CNN is not institutional, just for the sake of.
Well, why wouldn't you say that Fox News is?
Because CNN
they promote
both
presidents.
Fox and CNN are clearly institutional. Fox has managed to increase its ratings by allowing people like Tucker Carlson on the air. Clearly, right?
Yeah, except the thing is, and you hear this from people who make excuses for going on, for being alleged leftists and going on Tucker Carlson's fucking white nationalist story hour. But the thing is, Fox ratings are not that great. Fox ratings only look good compared to the overall specialist right-wing media ecosystem. Fox itself is not particularly popular. It is a niche product. It is for very specific kinds of assholes.
But in terms of, these are mainstream media companies that are all owned by these same corporations.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
I'm interested in the definition of institutional. When it comes to academia, professors have been variably pro or anti-institution, depending on the era and the context. Professors
and the
were
institution
famously pro-Nazi. A lot of them were Nazis, which is weird. You'd think normally the professors are more progressive. here.
Yeah, you'd think that if you believed right-wing propaganda. But the thing is, you have to look at the people who become professors in the first place, and that is particularly the case in Germany at the time, because you had a bureaucratic system that was set up under Bismarck that was designed specifically to keep all to the liberals and leftists to an absolute minimum, the unavoidable minimum. Like, I mean, because the people who scared the shit out of the Ancien Regime in Germany in like 1848 were a bunch of actually like district court judges and academics and people like that. Those were the people that actually freaked out Bismarck, and so he decided to make sure that it was basically impossible for somebody from a working class background or even a petty bourgeois background to get into those fields, whether it was the law, the judiciary, professorships, and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, the fucking academic institutions tend to be fairly reactionary. Okay, when Hegel talks about substance, what's he mean exactly? Like, leaving aside whether the individual in Hobbes is substance, like, what are we talking about exactly? Yeah, I mean, a liberal atomist sounds about right. Out of the two, Hobbes is the one I know more about. I will admit that I have not exactly made a detailed study of either of them.
In the States, there were plenty of leftist professors.
Yeah, plenty, not really. That is, the thing is, the reason people have that impression is that the ones that there are fucking, like, are just famous. They're the ones that get quoted all the time, you know. Yeah, like the Frankfurt School, or, like, I don't know, Howard Zinn or Chomsky or somebody like that. And the result of having, like, these leftist professors who everybody's heard of because they're really, you know, extremely well known, extremely heavily published, is that people get the idea, and it is promoted in the right-wing media as a way to just attack academic institutions generally, that the universities are just full of communists. Actually, the Nazis as well, during the Weimar Republic, that was one of their battle cries, that the fucking universities were full of Jews and communists.
You know, go further on, like economics profession has always been heavily institutionalized. I'm not entirely sure where these lines are. You say Tucker Carlson isn't institutional.
Okay. Except that he just said Fox News is institutional.
When I think of Tucker Carlson, I think of a wealthy heir who's admitted to being, you know, a voice for the interest of billionaires, speaking on a very large institutional news network. Something distinguishes him in your mind. I'd like to know what.
That he's anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I mean, his background, he may be from the ruling elite in terms of his background, but the information he's putting out there is discontinuous. Clearly, at least everyone here would not object to the fact that it's extremely contentious in general from the perspective of the institutional hegemony. And to define...
Notice that he avoids actually really giving anything concrete there. But we still haven't got him flying off the rails. I want to see Haas get to fucking East Palestine here. I want to see him go off the rails like a fucking Norfolk Southern train, and he's not doing it. Because these guys are basically keeping him in the boring zone.
It was Trump who assassinated Soleimani.
Yeah, he did, but he did so not on behalf of the power that gave him power, the MAGA movement, but because of his agreement with Sheldon Adelson and the neocons and Bolton and Pompeo. That was...
Oh, yeah, now, the idea that the MAGA movement is what gave him power is cute. Because the thing is, to the extent that these fash were the MAGA movement, they were no more an independent fucking power base than fucking the bullshit Tea Party or You know, or just about any other, like, political electoral campaign group. And they did not have any meaningful influence over him except for rhetoric, and fundamentally, it should not actually be surprising that foreign policy is the area where there's the least variation between presidents, and that's why it's basically never seriously a campaign topic. Substance is objectivity, which stands in dialectical relation with subjectivity. Ethical substance is the totality of social mediations that enable individual subjective activity. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, definitely don't see how you could, like, import the concept of substance onto the individual as understood by Hobbes.
Was the condition of the Republican Party tolerating his existence? I find it completely objectionable, those and other actions he engaged in, but that doesn't preclude me from being able to form a unbiased assessment.
Well,
that
the problem
he
is
was
it
still a
doesn't preclude you
political
from
outsider.
nothing you say precludes you from anything. Like you're just going back and forth.
Come on, go fly off the handle.
Having established a grounding for literally none of the concepts.
But the problem, Sunday, is you make these general characterizations of my position, but
I really don't.
But as far as a
I really
particular
don't.
argument in a particular position, you're just coming short. You're not able to actually give us anything to substantiate these general.
I don't have to. We're debating your political theory. The onus is on you to substantiate it. If none of your terms
I think you're confusing it. You're trying to say the onus is on me.
It is. We're
He literally just said that.
Your political theory as per your request. This is your
Sunday,
choice.
President Sunday should be called President Cutoff. You clearly
Oh, well, that's clever. That's terribly clever there.
are someone who has come to a conclusion before you've even heard anything I said.
Well, no, I had to go through the painful
I said
process
the
of
onus.
reading through like
I
a
said you
40-page
seem to
document
think
that
the
you allowed to
onus
get to this
is.
point.
Well, let's use this as speaking of generalities. I said the onus is. You think the onus is on me too, and then what was I going to say? You said, well, the onus is on you to make the. Well, we're not talking about that because what I was going to say is that you think.
Is Hawes complaining about being interrupted?
Yes, I actually am.
Okay.
Because I think in good faith.
That it was a fucking rhetorical question. Okay, come on.
Yeah, and an insurrectionary action is unconventional, and that would actually be close. That would actually get you close there. But the one defining characteristic you now have is the attempted insurrection of January 6th.
No.
Okay, this is starting to be promising.
Everybody else.
You mean like Truth Social?
Like what?
Like Truth Social, or what are you talking about?
You don't know what that is.
Well, exactly. So that's what they use is Truth Social. You even know
what is Truth Social?
It's the Trump Twitter app.
I'm sorry. Are you
suggesting
they're
using all the same?
No, are you suggesting the fact that Trump has a social media app makes them unique?
No, but you just said they're using the same methods of communication, interaction, and all this stuff.
Yeah, tons of people are using like separate Telegram spaces, and their Twitter alternatives are proliferate.
Dude,
well, not to mention Twitter itself, which has always been a fucking fash cesspit. Yeah, I was gonna say, we're giving him a lot of credit by accepting this term fucking political theory. Yeah, I mean,
you've really underestimated to what extent, like...
No wonder he's managing not to fly off the handle. They're giving him the level of dignity that he wants.
This country's very divided. It's a separate world.
Well,
like
I haven't, but that's neither here nor there.
No, it is here and there.
No. In fact, the fact that you're defaulting to the fact that there is like a firm bipartisan divide in the United States actually suggests that it's more common because.
Except it isn't really a bipartisan divide. When you actually look at the serious studies of public attitudes, neither of the parties actually is all that popular. You know, for example, when they ask the question in these surveys, do you think we should possibly have some other options in our elections? Yeah, that regularly gets yeses from majorities. And when you look at, issues like, say, healthcare, or, should we be able to just, like, go to the doctor as opposed to begging for our lives from insurance companies? Or any number of other things. Like, should we just be spending huge amounts of money on fucking weapons and shit? What you find is actually most people agree with each other that sucks and disagree with the entire political class. I mean, the idea that there's really, in fact, the idea that there's really any serious division on party lines, even in the political class, is really kind of hard to sustain, because there's very little you can find that they really fundamentally disagree on when you get down to it. Pretty much every single, like, disagreement they have is stylistic, and it's totally negotiable.
Because then you're folding into a larger whole.
So besides Tucker Carlson, what do you have in mind? From the hegemony, or the mainstream?
I don't know what you're asking me.
You're saying, MAGA isn't operating outside the mainstream because it's using the same mainstream everyone else is. What are you talking about?
No. The partisan is not defined by having like a hyper concentration of
clearly my
yeah, my eyes are more interested in this fucking game than
exactly the same as Schmidt's. I just objected.
But it's not only not exactly the same as Schmidt's. It's actually like contrary. Like
that's what I object to.
It's not even contrary. It's unrelated. Schmidt was talking about something completely unrelated to any of this shit they're talking about.
Object to, because you said that Schmidt expressly reject the one I'm drawing from.
He did.
No, because Schmidt, you said he critiques it for being individualistic. Mine is not.
No, he doesn't critique it for being individualistic. He
Yeah, because it's abstract. Because anyone with a contrary.
Well, now we're arguing about whether Haj's fasci ass is, like, misrepresenting the leading Nazi legal theorist. It's like, this is why debating with these people is not something that should be done. Because who gives a shit if he's, like, being, if he is not able to truly show that his ideas are rooted in the work of the leading legal theorist of Nazi Germany. The fact that he considers that something that you should strive for is enough reason to fucking kick his ass off the microphone in the first place.
Opinion is then a partisan. That's not what I said. It's not what I'm saying.
No, instead you said somebody with a contrary Twitter alternative is a partisan.
No. You said they use the same mainstream sources, and I said, what do you mean by that? And then
they do. The bare fact that there's also an app doesn't belie that. Like, what do you use? You use YouTube and Rumble, and you take your cues from television and Twitter.
Sunday, what are the ones you have in mind? I don't even know what you're talking about. Are you talking about an app? Are you talking about the internet? What are you talking about?
I'm referring to all of them. They operate in the same.
Can you name one? Just name one, dude. Just name one, please.
Well, we're on YouTube right now. This would be an example.
Okay, so that's a beautiful example. So big tech, YouTube. You're saying, well, MAGA uses the same sources. Are you not even aware of what's going on?
Also, that isn't a source. That's a fucking platform. Like, I mean, just because Haz and I are on YouTube doesn't mean that somebody who comes and, like, gets information from one of my videos and somebody who manages laboriously to derive some kind of intelligible information out of his is getting it from the same source. It's a fucking platform. That's not the same thing.
YouTube censorship and the controversy surrounding it, the rise of Rumble and
YouTube censors
for that same reason.
YouTube censors tankies and anti-trans.
This is huge.
Except they don't really censor anti-trans propaganda. In fact, they censor queer creators. When Crowder violated the shit out of TOS with his beef, his harassment of Carlos Massa, and all the homophobic shit he said around there. The consequence that he had was that his channel got demonetized, which is literally the default for LGBT creators on YouTube. So this censorship bullshit.
Hugely contentious in America because everyone.
sources
Dude,
sometimes.
dude,
They censor
You are so out of
bad
touch
language.
about the
They
basic.
censor like what are you
so
talking about?
out of touch about the basics.
No, your entire argument
The
at this point
average
is
MAGA person.
no. Your entire argument
Dude, you use
defaults at this point.
YouTube as an
Pause.
example. That's really
Pause.
stupid, dude. It's
Pause.
extremely
Pause. If
pathetic.
your entire defense of the partisanship of the MAGA movement is that like myriad other groups, they're victims of YouTube censorship. Like, I'm sorry, that just
Which they're not, and they're fucking not. I mean, they're so not that PragerU has to redefine the concept of censorship. They claim to be severely censored in this banner at the bottom of their videos that they don't check to make sure that it actually doesn't cover up the text in the videos themselves, based on the fact that they are not getting algorithmically boosted to the extent that they'd like. They're not fucking censored.
Wait. How can you justify such a reductive accusation? I asked you for an example of the mainstream sources. Your example doesn't stand.
my argument didn't require me to have an encyclopedic knowledge
This is
of
it's
the
a
media
simple,
figures that
it's
mega
as simple as
people in
this.
particular.
Sunday.
We're talking about the definition of.
Okay, finally we've gotten into the ad lib zone. Yeah, God forbid we should fucking misrepresent Carl Schmitt. I mean, anyone who is actually aspiring to be in the tradition of Carl Schmitt, I mean, that's already somebody who's just completely beyond the pale. And it's worth noting, I mean, for all his counter-hegemonic shit, you know who was really big into Carl Schmitt? George W. Bush's lawyers. They relied heavily on Carl Schmitt's concepts of the state of exception in order to justify all sorts of wonderful human rights innovations like forced disappearances of persons, which has never been dealt with. I mean, like Jose Padilla and all that other shit. They relied very heavily on, the ideas of Carl Schmitt for that. So, yeah, I mean, this is very counter-hegemonic of Haas there to be trying to put his stuff on a Schmittian footing. It's Arschloch.
Partisanship, Haas.
So Sunday makes the
We're
claim
not
that
talking
MAGA is
about
using the
what
same
media they
mainstream sources.
consume. We're
Sunday
talking
makes the
about
claim that MAGA is
by
using
what
the
Oh, wait.
avenues they
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay,
Apparently
wait.
not true,
Wait,
because-
Haas, you as well. Okay, that was getting a bit too much. I don't mind a bit of back and forth, but that was simultaneous. All right. Haas, did you finish your sentence there?
No.
Okay, finish your sentence.
Okay, so you were
No,
saying
how many hours have we got left of this sentence?
that MAGA's operating in the same mainstream. I think that's wrong. But in order to allow you to defend yourself, I asked you for an example of that. You said YouTube. Your example doesn't stand. In no way does that does that make my argument that MAGA's partisan because YouTube censors them.
Also, what the hell? What definition of partisan are we even using that takes it out of the mainstream? You can't get that from Schmitt in the first place, because it's not what Schmitt was talking about. And when we talk about partisan in terms of politically partisan, yeah, they are. They're fucking Republicans. To the extent that they are politically, electorally anything, they are extremely committed Republicans.
But it is an indictment on your ability to provide evidence that MAGA is, by and large, using the same exact sources.
Yeah, that's where I am. I don't even know who President Sunday is, and I probably would end up thinking he's a dick. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe he's cool. Maybe, despite the fact that he goes and fucking debates with Haas and does so on Vush's fucking stream, which immediately is 2 strikes right against him. But at the very least, he makes a coherent point. He seems to actually know what he's fucking talking about. And he points out that Haas is full of shit.
For information and platforms that are part of the mainstream.
Okay. Well, no,
President Sunday.
Thank you.
take it away.
MAGA engages in propaganda through the exact same media sources as everybody else, censored or not, as many other groups are also censored. They vote in the same way. They engage in the same kinds of same forms of political activism. What distinguishes?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, considering not, I wouldn't say that everybody who engages in political activism is going around like beating the shit out of queer people and people of color and shit. I don't think that that is really a mainstream form of any of political activism. I mean, it's a mainstream form of the way to operate a state, certainly. But, I mean, I don't know that you would necessarily say that that's just a normal way of doing politics as an electoral propaganda group.
Pushes them are their policy positions and their social attitudes and their
You're wrong.
decorum.
In form, they're completely different in all the things you mentioned.
But you haven't been able to substantiate that except by reference
Yes, I
to
have.
Twitter.
So you wanted to bring up big tech, but if you want to talk about how they
I didn't
vote,
want to bring up big tech. You
Okay,
brought up the Twitter app thing.
when most people vote, for example, they do so not because they're part of this homogeneous movement, which
No, you're not understanding the
even in the
objection here.
event of
No, you're
loss,
not understanding the objection here. The reasons for voting don't matter. No, Haas, just chill for 1 second. The reasons for voting don't matter. What distinguishes the
I don't know about that.
partisan from the non-partisan is the action itself, not the reasons behind it.
Okay, so
They also have to have like an attitude of intense
hold on.
political affiliation. That would be
Hold
consistent.
on, the fact that MAGA people participate in elections and the electoral.
I mean, could we talk about the fact, are we ever going to talk about the fact that one of the things that the polls, there are two things that the polls show about the really hardcore Trump supporters. One is they are economically better off than most people. In particular, they're better off than people who vote for Democrats, and both of those two groups are better off than the majority of people who don't vote. That's the first thing. And the other thing is, the one thing that really comes up really time and again, and it's really shocking because they're such wonderful people, the MAGA sort, but they have what in their polls is called a preoccupation with white identity. They're some of the most explicit white supremacists on the political scene. Are we not going to be talking about that, guys?
System means it's in no way possible to describe their method of organization and political existence in general as unconventional. That's what
No,
you're
but
saying.
you need to establish that it is unconventional. And if your point of reference, once again, is that they are persecuted on YouTube and have a Twitter app, that's...
Oh, well, which, first of all, they're not persecuted on YouTube. They are actually boosted algorithmically on YouTube.
not good enough.
No, I've referenced, for example, the different methods by which they do not only disseminate organizations, but vote in the first place. How do they vote, and how do they respect the outcome of the vote?
Well, no,
That's
but
completely different.
Well, or
not voting behaviors as in who they vote for.
Well, I think that's unconventional. So yeah, that's the voting behavior is unconventional.
they vote for Republicans. That is like one of the two conventional things you can vote for. Like, literally, there is nothing more conventional you can vote for in the U.S. than a Democrat or a Republican.
Very clearly.
What do they sneak into the voting booth? What are you talking about?
No, like January 6th. It's pretty unconventional.
That's not voting behavior, though. That's fucking voting?
That's not voting behavior. That's
Well, it's behavior resulting from their participation in the electoral process, which was unconventional.
What the? Okay. I mean, are we just gonna dance around the fact that we're talking about a bunch of fucking fascists here? Is this what we're gonna do? We're just gonna kind of dance around the fact that we're talking about a bunch of fascists, and to the subject of whether they're hegemonic and institutional, they could never have made it into the fucking Capitol if the cops hadn't helped them. If the DC Metro PD had not broken for the long tradition of mass arresting any protest that tries to get anywhere near the Capitol and escorted them to it, this shit wouldn't have happened. And aside from that, the people who went into the fucking Capitol, I mean, a significant number of them were cops. Some of them fairly high-ranking local cops. So, I mean, not exactly what you could say, not exactly counter-hegemonic there.
It's an unconventional way of participating in the American democracy.
Well, no, yeah, and insurrectionary action is unconventional, and that would be close. That would actually get you close there. But the one defining characteristic you now have is the attempted insurrection of January 6th.
No, the myriad, dude. Every time I try to name anything, you just interrupt me. So you're not even letting me speak. I could give you a lot
You're
of
speaking right now. Just stop whining and get to the point.
Okay.
So I mentioned information, right? That's the method of disseminating information, which is the most important thing, by the way, is unconventional. The method by which they
Well, the method of disseminating information isn't fucking unconventional. They go on the internet and they say shit. That's what everybody does. Or they go on the streets and they say shit. Or they spend a couple of $1,000,000 on direct mail and they say shit. They're doing what everybody does. For fuck's sake.
Themselves in American democracy.
They use computers and social media.
What?
They use social.
So you
media
interrupted me again. So we're gonna.
But they use social media and television. Like everybody uses this.
Because I can't name multiple things if you're gonna get fixated on one of the things. Okay.
I'm talking about all of them. These are all like things everybody uses.
So social media, where they are roots. So where literally new social media platforms are being built because of the disproportionate.
God, somebody just talked to him about vaginas or something so that he properly flies off the handle.
Proportionate censorship of MAGA people, and it is not just everyone gets censored. No, there's a disproportionate censorship of that specific political movement.
No, well, in the sense that there is a proportionate to the number of times these fucking white supremacist, homophobic, transphobic, anti-Semites violate TOS just by expounding on their fucking ideology. It is disproportionate that they don't get censored more, because literally every time they're open their mouth it's TOS. So I mean, in that sense it's disproportionate, but it disproportionately favors them, which is not surprising because the motherfuckers are funded by billionaires. His Reddit supremacy makes him smarter than his professor.
But because of the unconventionality...
Right-wing people across the board are censored. It's not...
No, they aren't! This is such a bullshit claim. It is not true. They're not censored. They cry about being censored. They claim to be censored. They redefine the concept of censorship in order to claim to be victims. It's not true. I'm more likely to be fucking censored by YouTube for talking about this stream and pointing out what bullshit that is than, you know, Hash is far right as Hash. I called him Hash. My apologies to Hashish. I really did not mean to insult it. Hashish is an honorable substance, but not in the Hegelian sense. Fuck it, in the Hegelian sense too. We'll say that it has subjectivity. Wait, that's not what okay, I got that backwards. See, as I said, not a Hegel scholar here. Hegel habe ich nie gelesen.
Not just the MAGA movement.
Okay, what is the right wing? What is the right wing? If we're not, what are you even referring to then?
I don't know. Everybody.
You don't know? Okay, now I'm gonna have to just rip him one. You don't know? Like, this isn't hard. You just have to maintain a level of coherence higher than Haz's. That is not hard. And here you are just...
Buddy from, like, mainline conservatives, that they go too far.
Yeah, but that censorship is in the context of a unified movement built on collective distrust toward the hegemony, the MAGA.
God, I mean, this is annoying the shit out of me, because the idea that he gets to claim... There's no pushback on this completely bogus claim that right-wingers get censored, that they don't get censored, they violate TOS because they're constantly using fucking racial slurs and shit, and talking about how they want to go off and murder minorities, and on very rare occasions, these platforms reluctantly will enforce their terms of service. God, I'm so sick of this bullshit about, I mean, nobody is questioning that in this discussion. Okay, fuck President Sunday. Yeah, that is just bullshit.
The movement. I think it's important to stress it's not just that.
No, I'm talking about people as milquetoast, as like Sargon of Akkad, for example.
Yeah, a guy who actually specifically has advocated support, has expressed explicit support for fascism.
It is not specifically targeting the MAGA movement in particular.
The broader censorship of the right-wing voices
is non-existent
in the context of the emergence of right-wing populism, and the American form of that was the MAGA movement.
And God, I hate this term. The term populism is a term that I just want to take a cricket bat to every time I see it, because it's used to avoid calling fascists fascists, and then it's also used to describe social democrats in order to lump them in with fascists as part of something that is just universally bad. It is such a bullshit term. And the fact that a guy like Has will just willingly adopt it is all the proof you need that it is a term that just needs to die.
I got...
Maybe Has should have read a poli-sci 101 text before tackling the science of logic. What is the right wing? I mean, what gets me is that none of these people are actually able to define it. I mean... Okay, my definition, let me just use my definition, which is completely unrelated to anything that either of them go with. I use, because there's this tendency to come up with an arbitrary center, like most of the people who call themselves centrists. It's just an arbitrary center. The center is, by definition, whatever they believe in. To me, the center is majority public opinion. And you have, so the right wing is everybody to the right of center, which means like basically the entire political class. On the other hand, I have a much more restrictive definition of left, which is basically some kind of revolutionary anti-capitalist, basically communists, anarchists, people who want to get rid of capitalists. And I'm just noticing it is 1 o'clock. It is time for me to wrap it up for tonight so that I don't go waking people up. And let me just say thank you so much, Blanca Anarchic Reacts, for joining us tonight. I'll be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. I will also be on Hyperpolyglotting with Elise, my language-related stream, from 4:30 to 7 tomorrow. And if you're enjoying the stream, please consider paying for the stream. Right now, if you drop a tip, it is also going towards my current crowdfunded translation project, which is the first full-length English translation of Kollontais Socjalna Основы Женского Вопроса, the social basis of the female question. I am currently about halfway through translating and raising funds for the translation of Chapter 1 of 3. And my Patreon includes the currently you can find like tasters of that section on my Patreon. Let me also just link my Discord here and my Patreon. You can find the draft translation of the introduction, which is already up there in PDF form on my Patreon. And any support that goes to my Patreon or the tips is going towards the crowdfunded translation project. I'm very excited about that. Thank you to everyone who's joined. Thanks Phoenix, Adam, Black Anarchic Reacts. Everybody give Black Anarchic Reacts a subscribe. Their streams are great. I very much looking forward to seeing what else is on the channel. Have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow, I guess. Where the hell's my OBS window?